Good morning, everyone. Welcome to Accuracy in America, brought to you by Accuracy in Academia. I am your host, Don Irvine, joined by my co-host, Brian McNichol.
Hello, deplorables, dregs, despicables, chumps, Neanderthals, semi-fascists, maggots, and of course those dog-faced pony soldiers.
All right, I am back. What did I,
All
what did
right.
I miss? What did I miss weather-wise out here? How was the
It's
weather?
a warm day, a warm late April, early May. It's been warm, been pleasant. Had a little bit of rain, but not too much. So it's been
Yeah,
nice.
yeah. I mean, you may have seen, what was it on Saturday, Sunday? What was it Sunday when I posted? I guess it was Sunday, and when I was out in Utah,
Yeah.
it had snowed a little bit. It was wet snow. It wasn't really sticking where we were, but I remember we had one really nice day. I was out there from May 1st, came home last night. The other days were okay, but we would get into the 30s at night and stuff like that. But it had a hard time getting above 55, 60 during the day. And but I think on Saturday it was like 70. We were down at a national park that I'd never heard of before, which was a pretty little place. But
Where
like a
were
lot,
you? Because I think I was there. I think I saw.
it's called Capitol Reef,
Yeah, I think
and
we
it's
were
in the
there.
middle of it. There's nothing there. I mean,
Yeah,
there's nothing around.
that's the ones I like. Middle of nothing ones, really, because like you get into the tourists and it's the ones where you can just walk around and explore. I really like.
Yeah, I mean the advantage of Capitol Reef. I mean, there's some interesting things to see there. I mean, the kind of the formation and all that stuff, but it's just that it's not as crowded. I mean, we got down there. I don't know. I mean, I think closer to 11 o'clock or whatever, a little bit behind the schedule my brother-in-law wanted to go to, but it wasn't really crowded then. But I can only imagine what Bryce or Zion, or Arches,
Yeah,
they typically get kind of overrun with tourists. So this was nice. We could do things at our own pace. My brother-in-law is much more of an adventurer, and but he didn't. One thing we didn't plan on. I mean, and he didn't plan on it either. Is just you can get these cheap shoes, Skechers shoes at Costco or whatever. And so they're comfortable for walking around it, but they're not good for hiking, right? And he
that's
wanted to go. He wanted to go on this trail, and so we started up this trail. And we're like, it's like this is not going to work. This is a rocky trail, and these shoes are hurting.
yeah.
So even he was willing to turn around, but he kept looking kind of wistfully at the top of the mountain. He saw somebody waving a flag, and I know he wanted to go there. And it's like, my wife and I are like, not happening.
Not in Skechers. No,
Yeah, not wearing those shoes.
I love Skechers. I mean, they're good for old people.
I'm old. Okay,
Yeah, I am too.
I
Beats the
admit it.
alternative.
Yeah, I beat the alternative. So anyway, so it was a nice day, but I mean, it takes about 3 hours to get down there and all that stuff. And I'm glad my wife kind of convinced her brother to head back so that we didn't get back too late or anything like that and all that. So it was a nice day, and I think my brother-in-law got some of what he wanted out of it. And his wife, um, you know, she packed some food for us or whatnot, and her basic thing was she says, I'm glad I'm glad I'm not going. Thank you for being here because I don't have to go.
Yeah,
Plus, she was preparing to go to make. She was leaving for a trip to Korea on Monday. The last thing she needed to do is spend all day at a national park.
I
So
gotcha.
anyway, it was someplace I had never heard of before, and I was surprised at actually how many people knew about this place. So I am not a national park expert by any stretch of
No,
imagination,
me either. Me
but
either.
I was out there because my daughter-in-law had graduated from Salt Lake Community College nursing school, and so that was a good day. My Her father has gotten into biking, and he's not appreciating the Utah weather lately because it's been up and down, and that's
Yeah.
what it's kind of hard, to get out there and do a lot of biking when the weather is so variable and stuff like that. And I was on the plane last night. Just near the end of the flight, this guy kind of leans over and asked me a question because he saw what my lock screen was on my iPad, and so we got into a Mormon discussion because it turned out he was a Mormon bishop, but
Oh
only
wow.
because I had a Mormon picture, basically. My wife and I, kind of in our in our church outfits and whatever. So he had just dropped off his daughter. They apparently had, I said, driven out there from Lancaster, Pennsylvania to Utah to drop their daughter off at nursing school at Weber State, which is up in Ogden under Kansas. Right. And I said, so you take 80? He goes, yeah. I says, and when it started snowing, it was crazy. And I'm like, yeah, 80 is, you want to avoid it, but it's May.
Yeah, that's right. That's right. But man, some of those snowstorms out there are huge. I mean,
it's nuts.
Colorado, they got 14 inches or something.
Yeah, no, it's crazy. I mean, that's the thing. My brother-in-law was on the way back, from the park. He was just checking the weather, and he says, "Come on, snow tomorrow." And he's like, "Oh no!" But then he's looking again. He says, "Okay, higher elevations." He said where they live is about 4,500 feet. It was really going to be at maybe 7,500 feet and above. So we were probably going to be safe, and we really were, because we just basically got kind of a mixture of snow and rain, nothing that accumulated. But you're thinking May, and I'm thinking like, yeah, it does happen from time to time that it does come down, but it might. I mean, if you're on I-80, that's a dangerous road, because there's nothing out there, and there's a lot of wind, and it tends to basically blow trucks over and RVs and stuff like that. So you got to watch out, when you're on I-80. It can be a real mess. So it was an interesting trip all the way around. And the news that I can put out here, because my son does not watch this program, is that they're expecting.
All right.
So grandchild number 7 on the way. It was funny because we were outside the community college. We were doing family pictures, and he gives my wife is standing next to him, and he opens up his phone and he shows her a picture of the little pregnancy thing, right? And my wife's looking at it like, what's this? Kind of like, right? We were totally waylaid, and then she realized, oh my goodness, and it's like, oh, so they held off. She's about 9 weeks into this, and they held off on this until we could get out there so he could deliver the news in person, and everything. So
very good.
Yeah. So it's hard keeping a secret that long, and everything like that. But I appreciate, I guess, on one hand, appreciate the in-person notice, but as my wife says, what a stinker,
Call me.
Our family's gone through a lot. The good news is welcome for us.
It's welcome. Heck yeah.
And everything.
That's great news. New life. Great news.
Yeah. So we'll see. I guess they'll find out what the gender is at some point here fairly soon. But anyway, so my wife's already. She's like, well, we'll go ahead and pay for the nursery furniture just like we did for Kristi. And I'm like, oh, we did? I don't remember this.
Been agreeing to pay for all that stuff.
Yeah, I guess so.
I thought I was rich, man.
All right. Sounds like a plan. I can't go against that.
That's right.
That'll be a done deal. But I'm sure my son will appreciate that. All right. Anyway, so things are kind of plodding along. I guess one of the things I saw, and correct me if I'm wrong, is Russia kind of declare, or is trying to declare victory now, a little bit, or because
they are. They're sort of trying to lock in where it is, and there's a lot of the talk, like the leftists, of why we need to keep funding the war is if we don't bog Putin down fighting in Ukraine, if we let him have that easily, then he will then move on to other parts of Europe. And I don't see that. The more I think about that, I think that's a self-serving kind of threat, right? They have always wanted a land bridge to Crimea, Deepwater Port. They have that. They have a path all across southern Ukraine now, from Russia all the way to the port. And I don't know that they care anymore. I think they've got what they want. They could live with or without Kiev being captured. Putin says all this stuff about the Rus. I don't know how much money he would spend to reestablish the Rus over what he has reestablished so far. So I don't know. I tend to think that he is interested in locking in the gains he has now, and I think he sees elements of the West, certainly Republicans in the United States, some other conservative party people over in Europe who are saying, yeah, it's time to seek a deal that locks in the gains, because, the option is to commit the resources to drive them out of there, and to do so in such a way that they will not respond with nuclear weapons, which is, you're dancing between the raindrops there. So, I think that practical minds are looking for a solution here, and this provides an off ramp.
Yeah, I still in the back of my mind think that Putin would love to reestablish the old USSR, right? I mean, it would be, he could rebuild an empire in a sense, but I don't know if he's going to put a lot of resources into it. But he might be ticky tack on this, try to grab this and try to grab that. He's got to get past this and kind of lock in these gains. But I think if he sees that NATO's not really doing anything to resist at this point, then maybe he makes another move at a later date. I don't know. It's hard to predict. But they do have. I mean, their resources. They have to. I mean, how much more manpower they want to throw at these things? How many more?
Right. So here's the thing. Yeah, in Russia, one thing, their economy. The Democrats keep saying, we have the healthiest economy in the world. No, we don't. We're not even healthier than Russia. Russia's economy is booming from being able to sell energy at high prices because of counterproductive U.S. policies, right? So, but you still don't have a lot of people. You still, you're talking about an economy the size of Florida, right? And, there's still a lot, and it's all extractive industries, and you have an unhealthy population. Average the lifespan there is below 60. Like people like you, me, and you are dead. That's a different. The pile that he's working from is a lot smaller than we take into account right now. He could nuke and try to force his way into Poland or whatever. But I think he's trying. What he made here was a strategic move. And moving into Poland, it may, scratch national pride itches and whatnot. And, as you say, reestablish the USSR and show Russian preeminence again. But I don't think they're in position to think in those terms. I think that, getting their land bridge and thwarting all the, they've rebalanced the trade system in the whole world, right? It used to be, you almost had to have approval from the United States to trade internationally. And now, we control very little of what's going on in the world because, we've been proven to be paper tigers who are confused about our role.
Yeah. One thing about wars and things are going forward too, is that, because the birth rates have dropped across the world, is that you don't have, kind of this endless supply of young people coming through to be drafted and put into the army and fight and things like that. And so, yeah, you do what Putin has done, is that you empty out your prisons or whatever. You try to find people, you bring old people into the mix and stuff like that. And they're not trained, and takes a lot longer to get them trained. Warfare is very different. I mean, I guess drones and other sophisticated, instrumentation, weaponry is what you need or will use. But you'll still need, even if you're using drones, you got to teach people how to actually pilot those drones.
Right.
And it's unlikely that you can teach a 60-year-old to pilot a drone as quickly as you can a 20-year-old. I think. Right. I think it'll be very hard to do a whole lot more beyond what he's doing. There are going to be limitations. Money wise, he can get all the money he wants. Sanctions or no, because of the oil. Right. When you have oil and you can produce that, you have a chance to continue to just underpin your economy despite everything else that you're doing wrong.
Right, and our sanctions against them have utterly collapsed.
Yeah. So they haven't worked around because Russia's worked. They have found all kinds of ways around all of that. So anyway, it's interesting. All right. So the other thing too now is this Israel-Hamas thing continues to go on, and now the Biden administration apparently wants to pause bomb shipments to Israel. They're concerned, I guess, about what this Rafah, attack will be and everything like that. I definitely, in my mind, they keep feeling or thinking about all the poor people in Gaza, listening to the propaganda coming out of Gaza about who's being killed and how many are being killed and everything like that. So they become very sensitive to that. But I mean, if they go through and they do this and they do this for an extended period of time, I mean, don't the Jews here in this country, once again, we talked about how, some of them may be, able to, the Republicans, may be able to peel some of them off during the elections. I wonder if more would, begin to think like this administration is going the wrong direction on Israel policy, where we had been pretty strong for a number of years, that Biden is almost trying to play both sides of this issue.
Right. He is trying to play both sides of it. And it's not a both sides situation. Israel didn't attack Hamas on October 7th. Hamas attacked Israel. Israel didn't rape Hamas girls, didn't kidnap people. The killing they've done, they've been very as surgical as they could possibly be about it. They warned everybody beforehand, including they warned people the other day when they were going into Rafah. My thing is this: 5 years from now, will the world be any more angry with Israel if they take 2 or 3 more weeks and finish the job? I don't really think so, right? I think that the people who are going to be angry at Israel, they're already max angry, and it's not going to change. And the people who think they're doing the right thing, finishing the job will not change that. And the people who are in the middle, 5 years from now, they won't care about the next 3 weeks. But the next 3 weeks is critical for this, because you have a chance to finish off the entire military force of Hamas, and to get rid of all the leadership. Everyone who is encouraging Hamas to do this and whipping the people to do it and so forth is subject to being eliminated in the next 3 weeks. Right. The final group of them are the people that are in Rafah. That's why they went into Rafah, was to get the final exit. There's 5 battalions left in Rafah. And so you need to go in there and root it out. You will never get a better chance. You will never have more of the world. It's, there are some people against them for sure. But you'll never have more of the world and more of American political public opinion on your side than you do right now. You are aggrieved, right? They were attacked. The attacks were devastating. The lies about the hostages are horrible, right? The true stories about the hostages are even worse, right? The things that they did to these people, and now is the time to make sure, because you're doing 2 things. One is you're degrading Hamas to the point that it can't do this, and the other one is you're telling anybody else who gets an idea to do something like this that you will not believe how severe the consequences will be. Right? These are people who are persuadable by consequences. Right? They look and they see, Gaza City like laid to rest. You see the photos almost every day, all those buildings bombed and so forth. And they're like, okay, if we go after Israel, this is what we will get, and no one will stop them from doing it. Because that's the other thing, is all the supposed enemies Israel has around the world, no one stepped up to stop them from doing this. Right? They did this. They completed all this. No one got in the way.
Yeah, look, I mean, wartime decisions and things like this should never be based on public opinion, right? I mean, if you've got public opinion on your side, that's fine. But realistically, to me, it's just that, military
leaders, a measure of leadership that you got to sell your public opinion. You got to sell your deal. If you're going to go to war, then you need to convince the country that it's a good idea. Yeah. I mean, if you're in a pluralistic country, then public opinion has a lot to do with whether you should go to war.
Yeah, but I mean, the decisions that the government of Israel makes now, so it's like,
strategic decisions. You can, once you're in it, you're in it to win it.
Right. Exactly. That's basically what it is. I mean, that's the thing, is that they should, at this point, they should kind of, we're so far into it, ignore a lot of the white noise that's going on here. It's like, make your strategic decisions and go forth and do it. don't get hamstrung is really my point.
Right.
Don't get hamstrung by public opinion and all this nonsense that's going out there that slows you down and makes you say, maybe we shouldn't do that. It's like,
Pull back a little. Don't pull back. There's no pullback.
Right. If everything says, if we do this, we get this result, and we're, the end, we're going to, as you have said time and time again, finish the job. We can finish the job if we do this. Then don't hesitate. Let's go ahead and finish the job.
Quicker the better.
Yeah. Don't let these other goofy people out there slow you down, and all they do is help the other side, and so go full bore with this and get this done, because you can't let them get out of this at this point. I mean, they committed a horrible atrocity against Israel. More will happen, if this goes on. I mean, if people out there think that letting Hamas off the hook and having, getting some kind of, solution, some ceasefire or something like that is going to be the resolution. No, that just buys Hamas time to retool, rebuild, and plan yet another attack at some other point, which could be even more damaging and more lethal. So, who are we kidding? But there are a lot of people out there that are very influenced by what they see and read in the news media and hear by certain politicians. So, which is a shame. Which I guess probably better off leads to what is happening in our country across the nation's campuses, which is just a horrid scene. It's in a little bit, it's like shades of the Vietnam War or something like that. We've got these protests all over the place. They're taking over campuses. They won't listen to the administrators. They won't listen to the police unless the police force them off. But it has spread all across the country, right at graduation time, and upended all of that. Right.
Yeah,
so
that's right.
Yeah, exactly what I'm saying.
You hammer it. You can't not hammer it. Right.
Yeah. So
these are people. They're what is it? First level learners. They get burn their hand on the stove. They won't touch the stove.
Yeah.
Right. The stove's not. You don't keep the stove hot, then they'll keep touching the stove.
Yeah. Right? So this went from a relatively small group of people kind of growing in the Ivy League to something that is kind of snowballed all over the place. And you're just seeing a campus, administrators not really being very forceful, not knowing what to do and how to deal with this. And when they don't act forcibly themselves, when they don't act with decisive authority, using their authority to take care of these students and remove the students, and there are also probably a lot of non-students, right? I mean, Columbia University, when they as things started to go along, they kind of locked down the campus to the point of only those holding a campus ID, could get on to the campus to prevent these interlopers, these potential professional protesters from getting in and inciting even more chaos from doing things there. But it's just insane. And when I think about it too, it's like, okay, as has been pointed out, this is 2024. A lot of the kids that were supposed to be graduating had graduated from high school 4 years ago, right? Kind of during the pandemic. And they didn't have a graduation, right? Basically, their graduations pretty much got canceled. We're seeing graduations either getting scaled back to the bare minimum or getting canceled outright. A lot of the bigger parts of college graduations, these bigger events where you have, the entire school doing their big thing versus the smaller schools within the school, when they have their own thing, which is a lot smaller, have been scaled back or canceled. Speakers have been disinvited, all kinds of things. That I actually feel sorry for the students that are getting kind of shafted on this graduation after having lost out, and I think they got shafted during COVID.
Hey, a couple of things on that. One is, why is it okay? The professors, okay, they sell college as this, place where you go and you learn new ideas, and your ideas are challenged, and what you show up with is not what you leave with, because people come at your ideas and you have to learn to defend them, and some of them you can't defend, so you have to think about whether to abandon them and all this stuff. And that's like the process of learning and growing. Okay. So a lot of these protesters now, they've come up with a list of demands, right? Because they want, they're like, what do y'all want? You're just going to protest forever? No, we will stop when they do these 10 things. Okay. So you look at the list of the 10 things, and what if the unit, it's like, divest of any company that your endowment is invested in Israel, anything that capitalizes any business in Israel, and if you have any university to university affiliations, right? If you're running any kind of joint learning programs with Israel, if you're doing exchange programs with Israel, if you're sending students over there on interim semesters and so forth, cut all that out, right? So okay, so don't go get exposed to the ideas. Stay away from the ideas that they, not necessarily you, but they don't agree with. Just don't encounter them, don't discuss them, don't go meet those people and see what's up, right? The whole purpose of university is being turned on its head by this, and no one cares. So the thing about it is like, universities, the wokeism and so forth, the whole edifice is kind of crumbling. COVID really hurt colleges because people realized, that you could sit home, because the colleges, what did they do? They closed, right? So you're sitting at home watching a lecture on Zoom, right? And your friend who's paying $45,000 a year less to go to college is sitting home watching his community college professor give a lecture on Zoom, and you're getting the same college credit for it, right? So people looked around and said, okay, what am I buying here for that $40,000, right? What is that tuition and cost of, living there in the dorms and all that? What do I get for that, right? And the answers have not been, edifying for colleges. So now you come along and you say, okay, the one thing we're doing is we're challenging your kid to think and defend his thoughts and think outside the box and learn and encounter new things, unless it's Jews, which we hate. And the other thing is, like, all of leftism now is exposed as the giant racist racket that it is. How can they deny the anti-Semitism that underlies all this? And, don't say, oh, this is about military policy or whatever. No, it's not. It's about anti-Semitism. Israel was attacked, and Israel has responded in a measured way, right? And they have done everything they can to minimize civilian casualties, no more than any other army on the earth, including ours, would do. So when you hear people talking about that, I don't get it. The case on the other side is devoid of morality or common sense.
Yeah, the thing too is that, professors. There are professors that have joined the students in this, right?
Yeah.
So it's like, wait a minute, you're being paid by the college, university, and you're now out there protesting with the students.
Yeah.
It's like, fire those guys if you can, or something. There's like, I think that should be a violation of their contract with the university, to go and do that, in a sense. They're supposed to be teaching the kids, and going and doing this and participating in activities like this, to me, is not teaching. It's not part of what they are. Plus the stories, which apparently have been verified, there are very few that are out there that are where professors are basically, they're saying, classes have been canceled for the rest of the semester, and you're all getting A's or something to that effect.
So I'm not giving you any grade at all,
Yeah, right.
because I don't do grades. And what are they doing to the Jews? Can Jews get A's right now? I don't know. That's kind of interesting, right? It's like me, it really didn't matter if you gave me an A or a B or a C, because I didn't have much grade point average anyway.
Yeah, here's our professor here. That we need the academic expertise here.
Okay, Bob is right. The quicker you get after it, the quicker you'll solve it. My thing is this: I don't really want it solved quickly. I like what's happening. Let's go.
Well, look, yes.
If you look at it, like Alan Lichtman, right? It's got his 13 things that determine the president, and he's never guessed wrong, right? If you look at his 13 things, okay, one of them is civil unrest works against the incumbent, right? I don't go near a college campus. They're not in camp in my house, right? You do have a problem, and it's May, so there's Jewish students who are the real victims in this, right? Because they're being pushed around and hit and slapped and prevented from going to class or crossing the campus, right? But it's sad for them. But it is a political dreadnought around Joe's neck, man. Nothing he can do about it. He can't side with one side or the other without making a lot of people angry. I'm all for like this, and it's not going to last much longer because school's letting out. Most colleges will be out by the end of this weekend, and so the students will go on and do their summer thing, regardless of their views on Israel and the Middle East. So, but the more unrest, the more Antifa, the more riots, the more calamity at the Chicago convention for the Democrats in August, the better for us.
Yeah, I mean, I think politically, this is not good for Joe, because the Biden administration has shown with so many things that they really are indecisive about what to do. They don't want to pull the trigger, because they're afraid of what happens on the other side. And because they made such promises and got into bed with the far left when they took over, when they came into office. They're so beholden to these people that making any kind of moves, definitely would hurt them, even with their own support. And so it's really hard for them to do anything. But yeah, and you're right. I mean, we're here in early May. There's probably maybe a week or two left of classes, and then graduation and stuff like that. Then the students are like, they won't be living in their dorms and stuff like that. So they'll be headed home, and maybe they'll regroup and then come back in the fall and do it again, depending upon the situation.
Well, you probably have a different issue matrix by then.
Yeah, we'll see. I mean, this is what we do not, one thing, we don't have a crystal ball exactly as to what's going on there. But politically, if you think about it politically, then what we would want is for these people to kind of go back home, do whatever they do. I don't know if any of them really get any jobs or whatever during the summer. And then they come back in the fall because they try to do something like this again, right as we're starting to get down to the last, 60 days or whatever of the election. That kind of thing would even be more harmful to the Democrats and to Biden, because the closer it is, the fresher it is in people's minds, right, the more it hurts them. Something here 6 months in advance, maybe.
But the other thing is like, if you look at polling over the years, it's pretty consistent that after about the middle of June, it doesn't change. If you don't have a big intervening event, it doesn't change.
Yeah,
we're almost to the end of, I tell people now, I'm like, Trump is it's a basketball game. Trump is 6 points ahead with 4 minutes to go. He hasn't locked it up yet, but he is ahead, so you still got to keep playing, but we're getting close to the end.
Yeah. I mean, it's just so interesting. I mean, we're 6 months out at this point, and anything can still happen, but the Democrats, and Biden, they just haven't made a really good case for themselves as to why anybody, why the Democrats, why the country should reelect these clowns, right?
Yeah, so I'm wondering about that because, obviously they're doing focus groups and polling, and they're trying to figure out like what messages resonate, right? And the Democrats have, in the last 20 years or so, they've probably been better than us at this, in the long run. So, they have settled on Trump as a threat to our democracy, which is kind of hard to explain. I mean, I guess that it riles up the partisans, but it's kind of hard to explain to the middle class since he's already been president and he didn't do anything that took away their democracy, right? Or whatever that means. I mean, Trump he didn't take away anybody's rights to do anything. And the other one is, the trials, right? And the trials are obviously not going well for them, and they're not going to go well for them. So, I think they've pinned I think their magic and messaging has started to slip away.
All right, Bob's got another comment here.
That's right. Yeah, that's right. And so you get, then you get to think, I'd be interested to hear that discussion. What do young people think? And, what of this is reaching them? And I guess not all Bob students are all that young.
Yeah.
But, some, by the time you're getting a PhD, you may have gone into the workforce and come back out and so forth. But, that's I'd be interested to know, like, what is informing American thinking, on this.
Yeah, look, I'm not against the professors having a discussion like Bob's talking about. Have a civil and open and professional dialogue about this, not these protests. I mean, from a campus perspective, from a professional perspective, from the political perspective, we know what you and I want and what Bob wants and things like that. But from if you're Columbia University or whatever, or UCLA or USC and George Washington University, you really, I mean, they don't want those protesters. That doesn't do the school any good.
Right.
It doesn't do the Biden administration any good. It's
George Washington. They asked DC to come clean them out, and the DC told them no.
Yeah.
So anything that happens after that is on you. The other thing is, there's been a backlash, right? There's at George Washington. I guess they dressed up the big statue of George Washington there. That's near the metro station. I'm talking about down there.
Yeah,
on the
right,
bottom.
Right.
In a keffiyeh and covered his face and all this stuff and made him a Palestinian, whatever. And then right behind it, so like people went up and hung a big American flag. So anytime you see that photo of what they did to the statue, you see a huge American flag in the background. And there's been people like LSU, Georgia, a couple of other places where the students got up against it, right? They don't take this. They're not putting up with this. So,
right. And there've been some pro-America, pro-Israel counter protests to try to offset some of this, but who get, the pro-Hamas people are getting all the publicity. And, we've seen, how many interviews have we seen, or reports have we seen where, when media talks to a lot of the pro-Hamas protesters, they really don't know why they're there.
Right. That's right.
It's kind of, this is very typical to me of left-wing protests, is that you can get a lot, they do a fantastic job of getting a lot of people to show up. But they don't necessarily know what they're doing there. It's, you've got the core organizers and they get all these people to show up, and it sounds good, and they can show them video clips and make it all like, hey, this is why, because all these people are dying in Gaza and all this kind of stuff and whatnot. But they're fuzzy. They're really fuzzy. They don't have
low info.
Yeah. The Rush Limbaugh low information voter types or whatever.
Yeah.
So it's so it's hard for them to kind of put a handle on that. So that's kind of an embarrassment for the movement, in the sense that they don't really have, your core knows what it's doing, but if interviews are going with the non-core people, then it's kind of like, what is, what's going on there? Plus, I guess there's been some exposure about, some of these people have been are paid protesters, for the movement,
right,
and things like that. So
Soros spending some money. All those tents all over the country look exactly the same.
Yeah.
Probably nothing there.
Yeah. What exactly? How did they get all the same exact tents? That is not a random event.
Yeah.
It's just, it's really a sight to see and behold. And I think there is some backlash too from other students who maybe just not very political, but are just they're just focused on school, right? They want to get through school, they want to get through classes, and this is a major disruption to the end of the semester when they're trying to get through. They want to graduate, and as I said before, we had a large number of students who got shafted during COVID on their high school graduation. They're going to get, some of them are going to get shafted again in terms of all the things that normally happen. If graduations get, pulled back a little bit and reduced and reorganized and things like that to smaller events. That's a shame for the students that were good students that just kept their head down. Just they did their schoolwork and they want to get a job. After they graduate, they want to be a contributing part of society, and they don't want to be a lifetime professional protester. And yeah, I mean, maybe even these young people who are voters or potential voters, maybe they see this. Maybe they were in the Obama Biden camp before, and now they look here and they said, look what these clowns have done. And it's like, I may not like Trump. I'll vote Trump, or maybe they'll vote RFK Jr. if he's on the ballot or whatever. But but Biden will not get a vote that he normally would have had. I mean, Biden's his ability to rein in these groups of voters that they had before, has eroded. His support has eroded among many groups, and this is what
it looks like he's going to be close to 20% on black vote, which Trump is. It was 8-9% last time, which was a big improvement over Bush, who had 4. It looks like he's going to probably win the Latino vote. He's ahead under 30, under 40, are both now. Trump holds a majority support, not just duality, but majority. More than 50. The only categories that Biden is winning in is seniors, is super seniors, 70 and over, guys older than us. There's a couple out there, and people who the most likely people to vote. Right, Biden has a 1-point lead among the most likely people to vote. Trump has about a 14-point lead among the people who are less likely to vote. So, we've always thought of it, and you remember, you've been in Republican politics a long time. Rainy day on election day was pretty good news for a lot of elections, especially for you in Maryland, right? The lower the turnout, better chance you have. But we're on the other side of that now. We want high turnout. We want to make sure everybody who possibly can vote gets to vote, because the people that will bring into the voting system are by 14 points Trump voters. So if you want to win the election, if you're out there and you have money and you could afford to take some time off and do something to help win the election, it would be follow those gun shows around and sign up voters and be a voter registration person at gun shows, because there are a lot of hunters and gun people who are not registered to vote. And if they could be registered to vote, they would, Trump's going to carry them by 70 or 80%.
Yeah. So we have this ABC News Ipsos poll showing them in a virtual tie. And, we can agree or disagree on, because polls are polls, we're going to see a lot of polls. We're going to see a ton of polls. But to me, the underlying problem here for Biden is that he's in a virtual tie, or he's behind. He's the incumbent president. He should not be in this situation. He should not be this close to his challenger. He should not be trailing in some states, that he won before.
Well, he's trailing in battle. The problem is the popular vote is close.
Yeah.
Like he's behind in Arizona, Georgia, Pennsylvania, Wisconsin, Michigan, North Carolina, virtually no hope will catch her in Georgia again.
Right. And the thing is that we've learned that the popular vote is fine, but we all know what counts as the electoral college.
Right.
And so, you could still wind up with, I find it highly unlikely, but I mean, Biden could if Biden wins the popular vote, I think, he'll still lose his electoral vote, and then he loses. But I think at this point, I mean, once again, barring Trump doing something really dumb, Trump wins this. At this point. And so but we'll have to wait and see, because there's no way I've got any crystal ball, and I'm definitely no polling expert at this point in time. But it's, the Democrats, they're in trouble. You and I know it. The Democrats know it. Prominent.
They're acting in trouble. They're panicking about their court cases. None of them are going well. None of the court cases are going well.
Right. Let's talk. We can talk about that briefly too, which is just that, we're on what, day 15 or whatever of the hush money trial. Stormy Daniels gets up there to testify, and she's a disaster. Okay,
Right.
I mean, she's like supposed to be a star witness for them, and she's a complete disaster, and doesn't
Caught in
really
a lie. What do
right.
we mean by complete? Caught in a lie on the stand. Testified to A B choice. She testified that both A and B were true at different times. She a lot of like lurid details. I guess when you get on cross examination, I guess that'll be today. Or no, they don't have it on Wednesday, so it'll be tomorrow. Um, Somebody will say, well, here's this letter saying that you never actually had sex with Trump. Did you lie then or you lie now? Which time should we believe you and why? So she has all this stuff that she has to answer for. I mean, I think they made a critical mistake. And I think that also tells you that they realize this is not going well. There's 2 lawyers on that jury. I think they're looking at this and they're not seeing the underlying crime or how you could charge him with concealing something in a federal election and you won't say what he's concealing. And, I think that they're running into problems. In the documents case, they basically caught him, rearranging the evidence to suit the prosecution's need, and tampering, losing their chain of custody of the evidence. They have all kinds of and lying to the court and saying the evidence was still in order. So they have all kinds of problems for that to answer to Judge Cannon on. And she has given them so many assignments of things they need to clear up before they can go to trial that no one expects that trial to take place before the election now. Let's see, what do we have here? Right, that's true. You can find some fault, in the way all this has been handled. Yeah, that's right. Yeah, that's right. That's right. He did just do it just for show, right? But I mean, and he could have put a lot more clamps on that and not had it happen like that. So now you have a witness basically there to be salacious, right? To make Trump look bad. Doesn't really cast any light because she didn't have anything to do with how these things were entered into the books. And you've already had a witness say, I entered them in the books this way because Michael Cohen told me to. And, Trump doesn't have anything to do with how these things get entered into the book. So, I don't think that he's going to get convicted there. It doesn't look like it's going to make any difference. The J6 Washington trials, if they don't fall victim to the immunity claim and or the 1522 case, they're unlikely to go to trial before the election too. The longer it takes for the Supremes to rule on those 2 issues, it's got to be 88 court days after that before they can start the trial. So the end of June, you go forward 3 months, end of July, end of August, end of September. There's no way they're starting a trial against Trump in early October of election year. They're not going to do it, right? If they do, the country's going to come apart. So they're in a box here. They're not going to get any of this stuff over the finish line in time. And they know that now. So you're going to see whatever their last play is, it's about to come out because they realize that this is slipping away and there's not much they can do about it. You're also seeing another thing that kind of shows you that they are thinking along these lines is, they've put back in net neutrality. They took away non-compete agreements. They're messing in the business cycle in all kinds of unpopular and crazy ways. And they're doing things regulatorily. They're highly unpopular because they will hamstring Trump, and they know they're not going to win. They won't have to, won't matter what the voters think because they won't be in office anyway.
Yeah, well, Lena Khan is an absolute mess, so it's a whole nother story.
Yeah.
But Stormy. I mean, the other thing too is that it was clear that she really didn't. She was contradicting herself, and it's really her hatred of Trump, right? I mean, So it's like there's nothing to do with all the specifics of the charges. It's a hatred of Trump. And she because she contradicted herself, no one really knows exactly what the truth is because she's now got a litany of lies and things like that that's just kind of tangled up.
And she owes him a bunch of money. She hasn't paid him.
Yeah.
And, so I mean, that's overlaid of this too.
Yeah, and as Bob points out, I mean, the judge is just ridiculous. I
Yeah.
mean, I mean, I think any layman can see how this is kind of an effort to railroad Trump, and it's not working. I mean, Trump probably does say too much. I mean, he could just follow along and not try to violate, the gag order. But then again, I have issues with the gag order to begin
I
with.
would, I
Anyway.
would not. Yeah, I would do what he's doing. Yeah,
Yeah.
I would not take that lying down at
Yeah.
all.
Yeah, I mean, to me, I don't know. I mean, you could always push the limits of the gag order, but anyway, I think that's also part of their thing. Is just like that's the last one of the weapons that they have. Is like we're going to throw you in jail, if you keep doing this stuff, because it keeps screwing up our case even more so because you're exposing what's
Yeah,
happening,
you're
right?
pointing out the problems with our
Yeah,
case.
yeah, you're
You
just
got to
you're just
shut
you're just
up.
yeah, you're basically blowing up everything in the court that's wrong in this case, and we don't want that. So there's so many things that are wrong with this, and Alvin Bragg and company. I mean, they should be embarrassed that they had even tried this maneuver. And Smith, Jack Smith. I mean, I know I'm pretty sure he's pretty livid about Judge Cannon, but guess what? You're pushing things that you shouldn't have pushed.
You
And
brought it
so
all on yourself.
yeah,
You're the one who messed up the scheduling.
you're getting your head handed to on a platter, and you deserve it because this is nothing. This never should have happened to begin with, and the public I think is even catching on to how bad all of this is at this point. And this just once again, any plan. If this was any plan by the Democrats, I think they were going to keep him out of office and keep him from running. You know, they've boosted his campaign beyond measure, and they can't put that genie back in the bottle. It's out, and he's a presumptive nominee, and he's likely to win in November. And so everything that they had hoped for and planned for is blowing up. And every day is not good for Joe because you can't put Joe on the stump very long. There's a report that the White House is going to shorten his speeches because it's quality over quantity. I mean, you can't make this stuff up.
That's the reason. That's why I would have done it.
Yeah, he gives such a better speech when he just gives a shorter speech.
Yeah,
let him
everybody,
say.
But Tom Davis, when I was working for Tom Davis, he used to say, "He who keeps it short gets invited back." So, people do like the shorter speeches, but it's because people understand that, there's a limited amount of time that Joe can spend facing the public without screwing up, right?
Yeah.
And so that's the whole thing. Is like they have this phalanx of people. Like when he walks to the helicopter, like the cameras are over here and he's over here. And there's this group of people that kind of walk, so you can't really see him walk to sort of block off the camera view. And it's like, and it's like they're dragging White House staff out there. Like Karine Jean-Pierre has to get up and leave her desk, and she's one of the 15 or 20 people that kind of stagger out there with him, so you can't see how badly he walks and how demented he is, right? How unaware of where he's going and all that kind of stuff. We can't. And let's think, all seriousness, if you're on the fence out there about this election, think past the sale. 2 years from now, right? Where's Joe going to be? Right? They don't have to hide this anymore, right? They win the election, then Joe's infirmities are not really an issue anymore, right? He gets to serve until you can 25th Amendment him or something, right? Which you won't really, if he wins, you won't have Congress helping you do that. So that's right. So you have, what's that going to be like? What will the country, who will be running the country, and how will they be running it, right? If because you think you're electing Joe, and the people who vote for him keep saying he's a decent man, and I'm like, he molested his daughter. He forced his son to run an extortion ring. He cheated on his first wife with the babysitter who he then married and cheated on her. We're not talking about a decent man here. This is not what we're talking about. So, but they say these things, right? And so, but 2 years from now, how will the country be getting run? Who will be running it, and how will they be doing it, and on what set of principles? And would any of us vote for that? I don't know. Maybe we did, maybe we didn't. But, we're in for a wild 4 years if he wins, right? Because it's pretty certain that he is not he's not with us, right?
Yeah, I mean, and we were talking earlier about, I mean, and what issues are they really trying to run on now? I mean, you were trying to mention, trying to point on Trump and everything like that, but
Abortion and democracy.
yeah, I mean, right, because Bidenomics, that's failed. Inflation is sticky, or whatever you want to call it. So that's a problem for them.
Going back up, gas going back up.
Higher interest rates are going to stick around for a lot longer than people expected.
Border's still a mess. Immigration,
all the push to EVs has been disastrous. And clean energy, all of that stuff. They're pouring all kinds of money into all of that, but car makers lose money on every vehicle that they sell. All these, everybody's been trying wind power in places where you don't have a lot of wind, wind up getting stuck with a humongous bill, and everything like this, because costs have risen and they don't generate enough electricity.
You got to get rid of that toxic stuff that they make them with.
Yeah, I mean, they got to really think about how to power the country. Artificial intelligence requires a lot of computing power. Yeah,
it does.
wind and solar are not going to power AI. So
that's right.
So that's a real problem for them and everything. All right, let's wrap it up, Brian. Take us out.
Okay, let me look at our little list. We talked about Canon, right?
Yep.
Kristi Noem. I don't know. What on earth? It's one of those things. It's like, there's a lot of ways that, they in England, they talk about the slippery pole, right? It's hard to get to the top, because the different things bring you down. You slip on different things. And she slipped on the slippery pole. The ranch people can tell us, they can lecture us about ranch behavior all they want, but you cannot go on the campaign trail answering questions about shooting dogs every day. You just can't do it. Mark Hamill was at the White House. I see you have that here. Was he high or drunk? I mean,
it was so weird.
It was so weird that, like, I have to believe that he was just hammered.
Yeah, I mean, I know it's all part of the May the 4th be with you kind of a thing like that in Star Wars and all of that, but it was just really weird.
Yeah. And you have Trump VP race. Until I see differently, I still say DeSantis.
They're
already having détente and trying to work it out. And, the thing, they've had bitterness. Like, go back and watch the 2020 debates with Kamala and Biden. Kamala called Biden a racist, and she ripped into him for all kind of stuff. And she's now the vice president. Oh, we get along great. I love Joe. He's the smartest guy, right? So, all that stuff gets brushed under the rug once the election ends. And if you're in that business, you have to be willing to say, okay, things that got said in the course of election are things that get said in the course of election.
All right. Well, that's it for this week's edition. Thank you for joining us, everyone. Please, as always, stay safe and stay well. Remember, we live in the greatest country in the world. Do not let anyone tell you otherwise. And as always, God bless America and go Astros.
Yeah, I hope so.
Maybe they'll dig themselves out. It's a little bit of a different life for you right now.
There's a different life for me because it's like expecting to lose every day. We haven't done that in a while.
Yeah. All right, everyone. Thanks for joining us, and we'll see you again next week.